Yes, I wasn't sure the Mary Magdalene thing was going to happen. And just before we set off for France, Adam found out he had a family funeral back in England. So we were going to go to France for 3 days, and he was going to fly back to London for 2 nights and then come back. And I was going to be left in France, which was a little bit daunting because I don't speak the language, and they drive on the other side of the road. And but I made contact with Katharina Walter. It happened to be on the days I was going to go stay with her anyway. And so I drove kind of a couple of hours to see Katharina for those 2 days, who lives in the forest. So she's part of the story too. She's a Gene Keys guide, and she's really into human design, and she's a manifester like Adam. So she was able to give me some really good advice on being in relationships with manifestors. Okay, so I'm going to begin though. I wanted to play some music. Um, this is from the nuns at the Basilica in Vezelay. It's a center for Mary Magdalene, and there's Holy Communion and prayers there almost every day. And these nuns, you really feel their devotion. There's not a lot of them. There's probably maybe 10 of them, and they all seem to have the calling of both Mary Magdalene and beautiful voices. So the sound in the basilica, I remember last year when we went, it was just amazing. So with this year, we actually planned to go for mass, and it turns out they have music on Spotify, and we bought a CD, so I'll post that on the tribe as well. Okay, so I'm going to play the music. It's just a few minutes, and if we just kind of really let it go into our hearts, because it's just beautiful. Spotify. Hopefully you can hear this all fine. So that's just a little taster, and it's high up on a hill, the Basilica, and you can imagine walking in. It's very white inside, very simple, and just hearing this beautiful music. It's just so healing, really healing. I think anyone from any religion would be like moved to go there. So that was like the middle of our journey, and I've made a slideshow, and this will be quite creative today because I was making a journal on ChatGPT, which is like an app, and so I was writing a journal and poetry, and it's a kind of AI interactive thing. But it was really interesting interacting with AI because it kind of picked up things that I might not have seen if I hadn't been doing that. Okay, so hang on. Um, I'm just trying to find, here we go, sharing the Magdalena presentation now. Let's go back to the top. Okay, so we're going to talk about asteroid Magdalena after the presentation, where you have Magdalena in your chart. She's currently transiting, and she was also, for most of the time we were in France, she was transiting Jinky 52, which moves from stillness straight to stillness. And the feeling of stillness is kind of where the journey ends. So I really felt a hit of this, and it's also Adam and I's shared vocation call. So it's very interesting. We were on this journey following Magdalena and feeling the healing of the core with that. So this is actually one of the rose windows from last time. So I'm just sort of picking up the thread of last year and moving into this journey. So this is a little bit from my journal I was keeping. I've just picked things up out of the journal. So I've mentioned before that the journey kind of changed because Adam had to go back to England to a funeral. And because of this change, we ended up quite near the Basilica of St. Theresa of Lisieux. But we actually had to go back on ourselves a couple of hours, and it refers to that in here. Despite the long detour, I felt a pull, an unshakable calling to visit the Basilica of St. Therese in Lisieux. 45 minutes off course, and yet entirely aligned. When the spirit calls, the map bends. The basilica, begun in 1929, rises in Byzantine splendor. Inside, shimmering mosaics glowed like ancient prayers caught in stone. I wandered beneath the dome, and something in me softened, liquefied. Around me, female saints stood radiant in gold and blue, their presence tender yet unwavering. I cried quietly, what was I shedding? The answer came gently, my need to cling, to be completed by another. My desire for Leo, not in love, but in attachment. Tomorrow I journey into the forest to meet Katharina. I'll be alone, but not lonely. Something else is taking root now, a self-assurance not born from defiance, but from communion with something greater, the true beloved, the creator. In this space, I'm not just okay with solitude. I feel the shimmer of joy, the invitation to burst open into life's deeper magic. So all around the basilica are words that Saint Theresa wrote, and these really pierced me. Love is my desire, but abandonment is my guide. I was like, whoa, that is deep. Love is my desire. I think it's actually, but abandonment is my guide. And so I really opened to the possibility that this kind of child wound feeling of being abandoned could actually be my guide on this journey. And I've never seen it as a guide. I've seen it as a teacher, maybe, or different things. But yeah. Um, so I went to Katharina's place. As I went to the road where she lives, a stork came in front of me and flew in front of my car. I've never seen a stork flying. You don't really get them in Britain. And the forest was just so full of frog song. And we had this wonderful evening where we went up to the frog pond. And in the dream arc, the frogs are laughers. And this is the first time I've really listened to the frogs laughing. And as the frogs laughed, we laughed. And then the frogs laughed even louder. And it was like this totally raucous laughing of me and Katharina. And she's got these two Maine Coon cats. This is one of them, Murphy, and they would like pad up the path with us, and they're huge. It's like sort of going for a walk with cheetahs or something, you know. So it was the most magical few days, and we've never met in real life like many of us Gene Keys people. I've hardly connected with her at all, actually. So it was really amazing to make this connection and stay with her a few days. So in the next part of the journey, um, I I wanted to read this about we were setting off for Lourdes actually. Now I wouldn't have gone to Lourdes because it's like such a busy place. So many people go there, but Adam really wanted to go to Lourdes, so off we set and this is an invocation that came, the invocation of becoming. For the pilgrim soul, the bard's voice, and the spring that sings within, I call upon the light in the stone, the voice in the water, the silence in the song. From the child who saw the lady in white, from the bard who stirred the cauldron deep, from the woman I am and the one I am becoming, I rise. May the veils fall away. May the wound become the well. May the loss become the guide. May the sorrow become the salt that blesses the bread of awakening. I call on Taliesin, poet of stars, who was many things and one soul. I call on Bernadette, daughter of mud, who met the queen in the broken earth. I call upon the Madonna with her hair unbound, on the doves of the river, on the laughter of frogs, on the tears that fall freely and wash the path clear. Make of me a vessel. Make of me a wave that knows its ocean. Make of me a song that remembers its source. I am not lost. I am becoming. So on the way to Lourdes, we passed through a place called Morand, and we were waiting for the shop to open because it was siesta time, and we just went into this dark church. It was really hot, and we really went in to cool down as much as anything while we were waiting. And as soon as I walked in, I said something, and I noticed the incredible acoustics in this church. And I started to sing the song, Out of the depths I have called to you, O Lord. And it just like, whoa. And it was really amazing. And we sort of I went into the sound thing, and Adam joined in as well. And we were singing Ave Maria very spontaneously in front of a statue of Notre Dame of Lourdes. And then we noticed there was actually a statue of Saint Theresa right next to me as well. And it just was like a massive heart opening. So before we even got to Lourdes, it felt like we'd had this encounter with Notre Dame of Lourdes. Okay, so here's the photo. I know you've seen it. And we you can see the queue behind actually of people going into the grotto, but we decided not to do that. We decided we'd like go and watch the people going through the grotto. So this is a poem about that. Beneath the stone, the water flows from womb to world in secret rows. The wagtail flies a golden thread between the living and the dead. I came with shame, I left with grace, a whispered prayer, a softened face. The black Madonna passed me by, red skirts like fire against the sky. And now I turn towards mountain stone, a path once walked, now mine alone. A quarter century undone, I go to meet what I've become. So this was a really special moment. I talked about it last week, and it was so weird because I knew these people were Polish, and I know nothing about Poland apart from I know you two, actually. Um, and yeah, so she is, I wrote it down, Częstochowa. I'm probably not pronouncing it quite right, but I wrote that down last week, and I just felt the power of her presence. And then you can see behind her Notre Dame of Lourdes stands in like this yoni of rock. It's like really awesome, actually. I was quite impressed with it. Well, very impressed, actually. Okay, so from there. So this was a part of the journey that hadn't been planned as well, but we decided to go to the Camargue. And the Camargue, I found out, is actually a huge delta of salt plains, and there's flamingos and wild white horses there. It's like really awesome, and the biggest mosquitoes I've ever seen in my life. So I got absolutely munched there. So this is a bit about the first town we met in the Camargue. It's called Aigues Mortes, which means dead waters. Across the water rode the walled town of Aigues Mortes, dead waters, where once the Templars were imprisoned. The name rang through my blood like a bell. My ancestors, Maria and Caleb Templar, whisper through time, perhaps once part of this tale. In this place of salt and legend, the stories of my lineage flicker to life again. Later, we moved among flamingos and herons at the ornithological park, following quiet trails upon mirrored salt pans. But it was the church in the town that offers the greatest revelation. Not Mary Magdalene, but Saint Sara, the Black Madonna, is most revered here. Draped in rose and crimson silks, she radiates a quiet majesty from her crypt below the altar. Her presence stirs something ancient in me. So that last bit is actually about Saint Marie de la Mer, where there's this myth of um, there's actually three Marys are said to have been in this boat that came across the sea and landed here after the crucifixion. And but what's kind of weird is not really about Mary Magdalene, this place. And I thought it was really going to be about her. But it's more about Saint Sara, who is a black Madonna. And she was really awesome. Like she's down in the crypt and she's dressed in these, yeah, rose crimson silks, like really ornate. And they take her out once a year on the feast of Saint Sara. And some people say she was the daughter of Yeshua and Mary Magdalene. Um, so I don't know, but I was really pleased to meet her. I felt like I was meeting the Black Madonna in Sara, like maybe she was the original Black Madonna. Um, yeah, she was pretty awesome. Okay, so this is an invocation from there. O Marys of the sea, you who rode the salt waves, you who manifest miracles through time, bless the lost, the broken, the longing ones. May your feet that touch the sacred shore walk beside us still. Saint Sara of the rose and flame, cloak us in your silks. Let the water cleanse, let the salt preserve, let the sea remember our names. So I was like really wowed to see the flamingos. I don't think I've seen flamingo in a zoo once. I've never seen them like properly in the wild. And obviously, with all this activity, I think Saturn and Neptune were in Gene Key 25, was probably still in Gene Key 25 at the time. So it was a real opportunity to kind of be with the flamingo energy. And it's always fascinated me that their pink color comes from living in this toxic environment. So there's this idea that we can be in toxicity, emotional, cultural toxicity, and we could grow more beautiful in it. I really like that idea. Um, and they poise on one leg. So I'll read this. Later, among the salt pans of the Camargue, the flamingos drew us in, dignified in their strangeness. They moved with an almost priestess-like grace, one leg poised like a dancer, beaks dragging side to side through brine and mud. Watching them, I received a teaching as if from the flamingo herself. To see clearly, disturb the mud. Twist your neck into places you've not looked before. Drag your face into discomfort, into the very murk where plain pain lives. There in the mess, love begins to stir. Not the soft love of comfort, but the fierce love that knows no separation. So yeah, the way the flamingos feed is like really with their heads. I didn't know that about them before. It was really like wow. They're really stirring up that mud. Uh okay, so from there, on the other side of the Camargue, the Rhone River starts to well, it enters the sea there. And what we decided to do was we took a little ferry across the river and we drove up for a couple of days next to, it's called Le Rhone. So it's actually male. It's a river that's, in French, things are either male or female, and the male is given the le. So we're sort of really curious to engage with this male river, the Rhone. And during this time, Adam had a dream that he was the next pope. and and he had called himself Adam the Magnificent. In this writing, by the way, I called him Leo, but when I'm talking about Leo, it's Adam. And he was done, David Bowie was there, and he was dancing with all these carnivals. So there was this image again of red flying through the sky. that connected to the Black Madonna at Lourdes, Shenstahova. So this is something I wrote about that, of stirring and soaring in the spirit of Taliesin's alchemy. To be a seer is to stir the pot with Grian's blind devotion, unaware that each circle drawn summons the stars. The hand moves, but the soul is moved by deeper tides. Then the drop scolds the thumb, and suddenly we see ourselves in stone, in sky, in flame, in the wet eye of a stranger. One with the mountain's stillness, the river's relentless prayer, and the stars who never doubt they shine. And Leo, in dream soft theatre, leaps like the jester pope of a new world, red robes flying, twirling with the cardinals and bowie beings. He is Adam the Magnificent, not to rule but to dance, not to dictate but to bless. The, the madness that makes all sacred, your dream, his dream, two halves of the same spell. The inner marriage, the true coronation of those who dare to love what they once feared and name it holy. Okay, so we follow the Rhone, and then the Rhone heads off towards Switzerland, off to um, I think the west, where its source is, and we headed off towards Paris and towards Avalon. So there's a French Avalon that we had driven past last year, but not paid. We didn't have time to go. It's got a jackdaw tail bobbing down in front of me here. So Avalon was amazing in France. There's no obvious connection with Avalon in Glastonbury, but Troy is nearby, and Chartres de Troyes wrote one of the Grail mystery books, one of the early Grail mystery books, and it's a really beautiful place. It's got like these cliffs that seem to be faces looking out, and it's like you're inside a Grail bowl. And then when you climb up, you get to this beautiful church on the top. And there was quite an amazing thing because I was working with this wild boar goddess for a while, working with my independence, who's called Arduino. And there's something was found in this town, an archaeological remain of a wild boar goddess. So she has human breasts, and then she's got like teats down its side. She's like, oh my God, this goddess is like really awesome. And where Katharina lives, there's a lot of wild boar in that forest. We didn't see them, but she has seen them. They live there. So that was an interesting connection. So we had a night in Avalon, and then we were going to drive over to Vezelay, where the Basilica of Mary Magdalene is. And it's only 11 kilometers. And I was wondering, like, what is between these two places? Because it feels like they're connected. So as we drive over the mountain, um, there's a sign saying the mountain is called the Eternal Mountain of the Winemakers, and it's exquisite. It's like barley and golden fields of wheat and vineyards. It's like the most fertile place, really, really gorgeous. And then we notice a sign for these salt springs. So they are dated to 100 years before Christ. Um, And they also have gas there. So gas coming out of the earth like they do at Delphi. So what we know about these places where gas comes out the earth is that it transforms your consciousness. So this is what like the priestesses of Delphi were in altered consciousness because of this gas coming out the earth. And this place is very similar. So just one, it really caught my imagination, and they found, I think, 19 of these really, really ancient oak trees that were holding the salt. And it's very unusual. I mean, they said it's the only place in Europe like this. I don't think it's the only place with salt because there's salt baths I know of in somewhere called Droitwich Spa in the UK. But I'd be interested to know if there's any in America. I think it must be unusual because it's very inland. But I was fascinated as well because, I've talked a lot about salt and how it holds like the crystalline structure. So if, say, we have a really amazing experience and then we take some high quality salt, that salt can actually hold that frequency. And the salt I really got into is this gray flower crystalline salt from France. It's really delicious if you haven't seen it. Okay, so on to Vezelay. So this is a view from the gardens up by the Basilica. So again, these places are often very high up and you're looking out. And we had this wonderful experience where these are all lime trees, and it's quite far that you walk up to the basilica, like round the side of these huge castle walls or basilica walls. And we realized there was this humming, and all these trees were being pollinated by bees. So as we were walking through here, it was literally like, walking for 20 minutes through a humming archway. It's just like, oh my God, it was just so beautiful. And then you go into the basilica and hear the nuns. It's just a really amazing sound experience, the whole thing. Okay, so following Vezelay, we then set off for Paris and we wanted to see Notre Dame. You remember there was a fire there some years ago, and Adam's an archaeologist, and he was very interested in this process where they've put this stuff on the walls, pulled it off, and like hundreds of years of dirt have come off the walls. And it's very white inside now, where it used to be very dark. But Paris was just really horrendous. It was extremely hot. There was a heat wave, and we had to wait in this queue, and there's just hundreds of people in the Notre Dame. It's like almost impossible to find a holy space, any kind of stillness in there. And every once in a while, it comes over Tannoy, this woman goes, Silence, s'il vous plaît. And everyone calms down, and then it goes up again. Silence, s'il vous plaît. Um, so we had this like quite weird experience, quite challenging experience actually, because I think we both had heat stroke afterwards. But I was following this red thread through, and I noticed that one of the places in Paris where there's a lot of refugees and poverty is called the Red Belt. So this is about that. Notre Dame and the Red Belt. Walking the Red Belt, we came to Notre Dame by the river's thread, but found also her shadow, the red belt encircling the city's golden heart. Here the stones are less polished, but they speak truth. Here life hums in 10 languages. Children play under washing lines, and the old revolutionary ghosts still lean in doorways. There is a holiness here too, not of incense and carved glass, but of bread shared, of struggle endured, of stories held in weathered hands. Is not the grail also in the margins, in the cracked pavements and the blooming weeds, in the resilience of the forgotten and the love that never made it into stained glass? In walking here, you walk the full spire of the rose. From sacred spire to humble hearth, you saw the whole. So it felt like there was a real message, and I felt this message it's there at the heart of Christianity, and it's there in Mary Magdalene, in the Black Madonna. It's all about, the rejected, the neglected. This is the place where the deepest grail magic lies, actually. The truest, deepest experience is in this kind of recovery of these rejected parts. That's what I feel anyway. The message for me was. So, the end of the story, we stayed at a place called Mantes la Jolie. Again, a complete change of plan because we were meant to meet someone and stay on the other side of Paris, and she cancelled. So, we went to this side of Paris, and we went to this place called Mantes la Jolie, and we found out that this cathedral there is called the Little Sister of Notre Dame. And you can see these amazing ribbons there. The white and red very prominent. So it may have some kind of Polish connection as well. We've come across cathedrals before where there's a lot of Polish people attend, and you have white and red very prominent. So we had a beautiful experience here, where I think I mentioned this last week actually, where there was an African woman. I'd say she was maybe about mid-30s, and she was sitting there. When I first saw her, I think she was crying because I thought I saw tears on her face, and she just had this sorrow around her, but also this incredible field of stillness, and she was holding the rosary. Um, and and it was the field of stillness, and Adam felt it too, and we both went and sat close to her, and she felt like a real holy woman, totally unexpected. The Black Madonna manifest as a human being, and even though we're all white-skinned, I feel that Black Madonna is like inside us all. um, and a message about the true equality that exists on a spiritual level, whatever the political situation may be. For the creator, people of all different color skins are equal and loved, and share in the story of Christ and Mary Magdalene. So we entered in Stillness, which is the 52, of course, the mountain. This woman felt like a mountain. And it was wonderful to touch her energy field because I feel it like I absorbed it too. And I felt that stillness myself, but I definitely experienced something really special there in that moment. So I'm going to stop. That's the end of my photos and story. I hope you enjoyed that with all the poetry and everything. And so, yeah, let's have a chat about our Magdalenas. I have mine in the 14th gene key, which I haven't had time to look up very much, but I do know that Katharina was really exalting the 14th gene key. when we were chatting and outside her cottage, and I feel it as almost like it feels like a very queenly kind of energy. I know it's a programming partner with the 8 as well. Um, so yeah, and then I've got a 43 as the design. So I'm gonna keep quiet now and invite you to share if you know what your Magdalena is. She's 318. So okay, let me stop the recording quickly.